Hiya, Georgie! What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the G Show podcast. I am G1, and this is the Geek Out, episode 24. There wasn't a lot of things that happened this week in terms of Geek Out news. At least, I got to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't paying attention. Work this week was absolutely crazy, so I was very preoccupied. But it did come out this week, so we're going to be talking about it. But before that, the only piece of news that I know that came out was important, and I felt we needed to touch upon it, was Colin Trevorrow leaving Star Wars Episode 9. So we're going to start with that first, but before we do, let me introduce you to my panelist. Joining me once again is the Chewie to my Han, or maybe I'm the Han to his Chewie. I don't know. Wait, that's the same fucking thing. It's my man, C. Monty Chris. What's up, my brother?
It's good, man. That track is getting a better track than this movie deserved.
Oh boy.
We'll get to that.
We're going to get to that. G95 Matt is out on vacation. He's not really vacationing. He's vacating this podcast. And we'll get into that. So, yeah, I just wanted to shout you out there, Matt. I love you. Miss you. Feel better. But you're going to have to come correct because this verbal assassin over here is waiting for you. He's got some things he wants to tell you, and it's going to fly. It's going to get crazy. Also, before we start the show, I just want to give a quick shout out to Third Phase of Moon, the UFO channel, for putting up my UFO videos that I got over Vegas last week on the 28th, 30th of August, whatever. Give massive props to you. Thank you guys over there for giving my videos some light. And also props to all the trolls that came out and was cursing me and my family out. I appreciate that, guys. Really, I do. You guys are wonderful. You guys are beautiful. We love you. All right, that being said and out of the way, let's start right up the top of the show. Colin Trevorrow, the man who directed Jurassic World to financial success. Some will say critical success. Some might say run-of-the-mill. But financial success nonetheless. Was slated to direct Episode 9 after Josh Trank was taken out of the director's chair after his flop with Fantastic Four. Chris, Disney and Lucasfilm, since Rogue One has been, Rogue One came out and I still enjoyed Rogue One for what it is, but they've been in kind of like turbulent waters since The Force Awakens came out. We had Gareth Edwards in Rogue One and the reshoot fiasco. We had the Han Solo fiasco when you get these Chris Lord and those dudes getting replaced by Ron Howard. And now we get this news. And I think the only saving grace right now is Episode 8's coming out, and we heard there's been no problems with it. What do you think of this? Does this, are we in scary places with the Star Wars galaxy?
It's hard to say because it's like it really is. On the one hand, when you have 3 stories like this breaking back to back to back, like, the Rogue One turmoil, the as you said, the Han Solo turmoil, and now. But those were kind of like, all right, these are side movies. So if something was kind of wrong with Rogue One, doesn't really matter, it's not the main franchise. Han Solo doesn't really matter, it's not the main franchise. But now we're talking turmoil on the main franchise. Yeah. So it is a little bit scary. Because, on the one hand, it's like, all right, so Disney is being, really tight about it, which you could kind of appreciate in a sense because, they're really protecting the franchise. But on the other hand, it's also like, how many times can you butt head with directors and start thinking that maybe the studio is just being a little too aggressive with it, you know?
Right.
And like, so like, I mean, it could be a case like, you know, some of the directors are more willing to play ball, like J.J. Abrams kind of played ball. Obviously Gareth Edwards, because not Ryan Johnson. I'm sorry, I was thinking about Roman. Ryan Johnson with episode 8, because like obviously there was no problems there, or whatever like that, or nothing to give us reason to think that there have been problems. But not that I'm that familiar with his work outside of Jurassic World and everything like that, but as far as I know, like, there's nothing to say that Colin Trevorrow or Trevorrow, however you pronounce it, is like a bad director, doesn't know what he's doing. That, like, you know, he's like someone like a Josh Trank. You had one somewhat success with Chronicle and everything like that.
Right.
And then you give it a tentpole movie and you just act like a little baby about everything. So I can understand them firing him, because all that was going on with the Fan 4 stick. With the Lord and Miller thing, it's obviously they came to, like, you know, not just from Disney's standpoint, but from other people who were on the set working on this picture. It was obvious these people were coming to this production with an entirely different outlook than what a Han Solo movie really should be. Like, you're trying to make Ace Ventura 22 Jump Street in space, and you want to do that, go, you know, get Mel Brooks' approval to do a reboot of Spaceballs.
Absolutely. That's a great idea, actually. Shit. I want that one.
Lord and Miller, they do Spaceballs. If they want to do Spaceballs, I'll support that one. But don't try to turn a Han Solo feature into Spaceballs.
Word.
So I can understand him fine, but, like, you know, it is kind of like, it's hard to tell at this point, because in those instances, I can understand why Disney put their foot down. But in this one, we're just kind of getting reports, oh, he was being difficult. But they're not saying that he was doing anything wrong with the movie.
Right.
Just that he was difficult. Like, what does that mean?
I heard it was something about the script. Like, he wanted one thing, and they were like, wow, I don't know if that really rocks with what we've already set up. And that's an important part, because this is the end of the trilogy. See, one of the things that my favorite Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi, got right was it wrapped everything up. It wrapped it up the way, you know, well, I can't say the way I wanted it. I was a kid when I saw it, so of course I fell in love with it. But watching it now with a critical eye, I still have that childlike wonder with it. It wraps up the story. Everything ends on a happy note. You see Anakin Skywalker appear in front of Luke. Everything is right with the world. Now, of course, we get this new set of trilogies. We don't know what The Last Jedi is going to happen. We don't know what's happening here. We know Luke is a hermit now, and he's kind of like lost his faith, so it seems. But outside of that one trailer that we've gotten, we have no clue what to expect for this movie coming up. So now we're talking about Colin Trevorrow in 2019? Now that he's gone? I mean, let's be for real here. This movie definitely needs to come out in December, because they got to find the right director now. We got to find somebody that's going to get the script the way Disney wants it. I'm honestly kind of shocked, like you said, when it starts with the main franchise. The offshoot things are the offshoot things. Again, I don't really care about a Han Solo movie. I never asked for it, never wanted it, don't need to see it. You could put it in a book and I'll read it and I'll be like, oh, that's how you make the Kessel Run. That's fine. But the movie I could care less about. But with Ron Howard on it, I am interested now, because I like Ron Howard's sensibilities, and he's a child of the 80s, so he's a product of that time. But going forward with this, episode 9, where do we go from here? That's a great question, and it's up in the air right now. Do you have anybody that you are, like, do you have any particular interest in a certain director you think would fit that role and knock it out of the park? Do you have any, like, hopes or wants?
It's hard to say. Like, I can't really. It's a tough call to make. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head right now. I have to give it some serious thought. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head right now where I'd be like, he should definitely do it. I mean, honestly, when they announced Colin Trevorrow, or again, however the fuck you pronounce that, I was just kind of like, meh, like I don't really know enough about his work. Jurassic World was cool, but like,
yeah,
maybe.
That's how I
maybe
feel.
Not.
That's how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. I'm like, it's cool.
You know, I'll give the guy a shot and see what he does and everything like that. But there's no really director off the top of my head I could think right now where I'd be like, yo, he's got to do this movie or she's got to do this movie. Because you can't discount a good female director. Maybe Patty Jenkins.
I wouldn't be mad.
But
how about what's her name? She's got such a good style. She's got a movie coming out. Oh my God. She's got a movie coming out, like it's basically about time travel or something to that effect.
Oh, you're talking about Ava DuVernay with
Ava DuVernay, whatever her name. Yes, her. Give me her.
The Disney movie.
Yeah, it's a Disney movie, right? Oprah Winfrey's in it. Yeah, I can't forget. I don't stress yourself out, man. But as far as female directors, yeah, Patty Jenkins or Ava DuVernay, I'd take them. I would, to be perfectly honest with you, as much as I love Patty Jenkins and what she did with Wonder Woman, I would say no to her. Not saying she's not a capable director, because she absolutely is. But I would say, listen, you already have that. You got that thing already. You have that thing. Let's give Ava DuVernay a franchise thing.
A Wrinkle in Time. Sorry.
A Wrinkle in Time. There we go. See? We get there eventually. And you didn't even look that up, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. You can't see it, but doing this hangout video call, I can see he was stressing just now. He's sweating. As a matter of fact, his forehead is a little shinier. But yeah, give it to Ava DuVernay or something. I'll be honest with you. You know who I'd give this movie to? George Lucas. That's right. I said it. I don't give a fuck. Give this movie to George Lucas. Give it to him. Give it to him. We get Anakin back. We'll get Obi-Wan back. I don't know how, but he'll do it. We'll get Jar Jar. It'll be fucking phenomenal, dude. Phenomenal. Give it to George Lucas. That's a joke, by the way.
I mean, I've heard talk. I've heard people say it on the internet. I've heard talks that they might go that route. I hope not.
I think George Lucas, his vision is completely different from what JJ set up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it would be. But could you imagine just for a second that George Lucas did come back and direct episode 9? Like, he ends it all. He started it with Star Wars, right? In a lot of people's eyes, killed it with the prequels. And I don't mean in a good way. I mean, like, buried the shit, like, destroyed it. But could you imagine starting from episode 4, and then ending it with episode 9, like the circle is complete. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. Oh, man, that would be hysterical.
If he did direct it, and for the most part, it was on vision with everything that Abrams set up and maybe whatever Rian Johnson's setting up in the sequel. And then at the very end, the very climax, the final battle is between Luke Skywalker and Jar Jar.
Do it! That everything he set up in the prequels, right?
It turns out that the whole theory about Jar Jar being the dark Sith behind everything was right all along. He pops up out of nowhere.
Hey, Yusa, forget about Misa? Whoa. Like, let's go. Let's go.
Harry Bomber back.
Oh my God. Resurrect the Gungans 2019, baby. That's the name of the fucking movie. The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi to Resurrect Gungans. That's it. That's the title. We're in.
The Dark Gungan.
I am fucking with it. Alrighty. All right. Well, that was pretty much the news of the week that I felt was newsworthy because, again, you guys know I love Star Wars to death. That's my shit. But there's trouble in paradise right now. But if anybody can get a handle on this situation, it's definitely Disney. And I honestly believe in Kathleen Kennedy with all my heart. I trust in her. Lucasfilm they're in good hands. So we can worry, but I don't think we need to worry too much. That being said, let's switch gears to movie review time. Let's talk shit. Talk shit about It. It, the movie, Pennywise the Clown, Stephen King's novel, adapted for the big screen for the first time. Rated R. And I gotta say, I saw the movie yesterday. I took my teenage daughter who does not like horror movies at all. I took her to see it. And I believe she was scared at the end of the day of it. But she was saying, the sound is so loud and obnoxious. I said, listen, sweetheart, we go to the XD theaters. We didn't see this movie in an XD or an IMAX. We went to the regular theater. I said, we go to XD theaters where the sound system is pumping. We see movies like Star Wars and Spider-Man and Wonder Woman where there is a lot of noise. And not once have you come out of any of those movies complaining that the sound was loud and obnoxious. I understand it was your first scary movie in the movie theaters. You have a right to be afraid. It's fine. You can say, Dad, I'm scared. It scared me. But no, don't give me a bullshit excuse. You know what I'm saying? Don't give me a bullshit excuse, little girl. Yeah. I love my daughters. That's my child. But yeah, we took me, the wife, we did a family trip yesterday. We saw it. And I gotta say, I am kind of split with this movie. I liked it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. You know what I'm saying? I liked it. It was cool. I was like, okay. It didn't scare me the way I thought it was going to scare me. And I think that's why I was kind of a little upset when I came out, overall. But, like everybody's saying, the performances, I can't knock any of the performances. All those kids did their damn thing. We'll get into it a bit later. I felt like there was certain kids I thought maybe I would like to see more, but I don't know the source material. That's why I have you, Chris, because you know the source material. So I'm going to be picking your brain. But before I do, I want to know what you thought of it. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't see this on the video. He is giving it a thumbs down.
I did not. There are things in the movie that I will concede worked. Everyone's praising the kids, and I got to agree with that 100%. The kids did a great job, especially Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah, Finn.
From Stranger. Knocked it out of the park. He nailed Richie Tozier. He was perfect in that role. He stole every scene that he was in, and I expect great things from this kid.
Oh, I agree.
That being said, with a name like Finn Wolfhard, I hope he starts, getting jacked up. Mm-hmm. With a name like that, you owe it to the world to be in all 80s style machismo action movies with subtle titles like Aim to Kill. We now return to Aim to Kill, starring Finn Wolfhard. Like, you can't have a name like that.
I'm buying it.
But yeah, he did a great job. Jack Grazer did a great job as Eddie.
That was a hypochondriac?
The kid who had, yeah.
I love that kid.
He did a great job. Yeah. So as far as, the child actors go, those were the two standouts. Those are the ones that really, the kids to the forefront, stole the scenes they were in. You really got a feel for who those characters were. Some of the other characters were kind of cut and dry, whatever, you get a feel for the personalities, but they don't stand out. And then some of the characters were kind of not really given a lot to do and were kind of pushed to the background.
Mike.
Mike I'm going to speak on because what they did with that character pissed me off.
And I think I know where you're going with that. I saw your comment, and then yesterday I was watching all of these reviews and explanations, and there was something that they said, and I was like, I think that's what he was talking about. I'm not sure we'll get to that, but Mike pissed me off because you start the movie off with Mike. Well, no, you started of course with Georgie, but you see Mike. He's the first loser outside of Georgie's brother, and I can't remember his name right now. And Bill
Denbrough.
You know what I'm saying? Mike is the first person you see after the initial sequence with Georgie. And I'm like, okay. And then Mike completely disappears. And I didn't understand that. And then later on, when, like I said, I was watching all these explanation videos and shit, apparently Mike is a big part of the book. So I'm like, wow, all right. But go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be room in the sequel to rectify some of the things, like, they might explain how important Mike's character is in the future, like when they become adults and everything like that. But he was a big part of what was going on when they were children.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whereas Bill was kind of the de facto leader of the Losers Club, Mike was like the linchpin. Because he was the one that was kind of like you said, we'll get to it. But right now, let me just get over the points. Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, I was pissed off by, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, here we might have a disagreement here, but okay.
Not because he did a bad job,
okay,
but because you saw the potential for how he could do a great job, and they sidelined him.
There's no disagreement.
Because there's two scenes. That's the thing in the book. Like, okay, I know you want to, but I have to make this point to make a point.
No, just do what you got to do, bro.
In the book, there is a real animosity between Pennywise and the Loser Club. Whereas with everyone else that Pennywise attacks in the books and everything is just kind of like a meal, like, I'm eating these kids, that's what I do. There's a real animosity between Pennywise and the Losers Club because the Losers Club kind of figures out what Pennywise is all about and they challenge him. Right? So, which is what you got from Tim Curry in the original. He was he wasn't just hunting these kids down to eat them. He was antagonistic towards them. He fucking hated these kids.
He was like Freddy Krueger. He toyed with them.
Exactly. Not just that he toyed with them, but he actively despised them for how they challenged him. And I felt that this movie had a potential to show that because, like, a lot of the scenes where he goes after them, he doesn't get them. There's a reason for that in the books, and it has a lot to do with like their unity and their friendship and their all that stuff, all the love between them. It like how that feel like it pushes him away or whatever. So like there's like this building thing where he keeps going after them and he can't touch them because of how they're protected by like the, if you want to call it the magic of friendship, like the cheesiness. But there's more existentialism to that in the book that you really have to read the book to get it. And I understand the movie wasn't going to be able to capture all that.
Right.
But I felt like the movie could have had the potential of showing that and exploring that and showing the progressive animosity that Pennywise starts to build for these kids because they keep thwarting him at every turn. And there's two scenes, like the first scene, there's really only two scenes where you really get any kind of personality from Pennywise, which is the first scene with Georgie.
Yep.
Where they set up what Pennywise is and everything like that. And then in the second scene, in the house on Nebolt Street, when he's going after Eddie, and then Bill and Richie run down, and he's like, I'm not real enough for you, Billy. None of this is real enough. And you see like that personality coming out. But then for the rest of the movie, he's just kind of like there. Like just on the sidelines. It's like, hey, I'm Pennywise the Dancing Clown, and I'm going to eat you. And he's just there. There's no real, you don't really get a sense of what Pennywise is.
Yeah.
They don't really explore his personality. And in those two scenes, I think that Bill Skarsgård absolutely nailed it, but they didn't let him explore that for the rest of the movie. They didn't give him time to really push that out there, which is why Pennywise kind of fell flat for me.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Tim Curry version where he was really they really focused on him and really allowed him to like chew the scenery and explore, like, really get out there and get in the kids' faces and everything.
Do you think that has to do with the fact that it's Tim Curry and he was a big? I mean, let's be for real. He was a name, and I'm not taking nothing away from Skarsgård here because the kid, he has chops. I mean, I liked him in Hemlock Grove. I didn't see season 3, but as Pennywise, I 100% agree. I thought we were gonna have a disagreement here, but I do agree with you. Everything you said, he was there, and it was a wasted potential. Because you're absolutely right. Those two scenes, absolutely, you saw that character. It was fleshed out. He's a creepy looking dude, but his name doesn't hold that weight that Tim Curry's did. And it doesn't have to do with the fact that one's an ABC miniseries and the other one is a feature-length film.
See, and that's where I'm going to say that this becomes a problem for me. So I don't think it's because of the name. I think it's because the filmmakers chose to focus on certain things over other things, which is not necessarily wrong, but this story at its core is really about the animosity between the Losers Club and Pennywise. And yes, it's important to get the angle of the kids coming together and like that whole kind of Stand By Me, the coming of age thing. It's important to get that. But their whole coming of age is funneled through their battle with Pennywise.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they discover who they are as people, is by going up against this cosmic entity. So there should have been more focus on that and allowing Pennywise to be more in the movie. The reason why I don't give the thing about like the miniseries versus the feature length thing is because when you think about it, the entirety of the miniseries is 3 hours long. It's about 45 minutes longer than this movie was.
Right. And
that encompassed both the aspects with the children and the adult half. So you balance that out, you get maybe an hour and a half with the kids and an hour and a half with the adults. And in that hour and a half in the kids, they explored more of the mythology and built up more of Pennywise in that hour and a half than they did in a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. This movie actually had more time to explore that challenge between the kids and Pennywise than the miniseries did, and the miniseries did it better. So for as shitty as that movie was overall, for as garbage as the miniseries was at all, it actually did a better job adapting the book in terms of playing that angle of the kids versus Pennywise.
Right. Instead of it just being another like slash of the week type of this kid gotta kill this creature.
Exactly.
Because that's exactly what it felt like. And again, I didn't read the source material, but just hearing what you said, like I see it now in a whole new light. I agree with you 100%. But again, that book is a tomb. Like how much can you take? Because I think one of my issues with the movie, and again, like I said, I don't love it and I don't hate it. I liked it. But I think one of my issues with it was they did the, okay, here's this kid, and here's this kid's story, and here's this kid's fear. Next, here's this kid. Here's this kid's story, and here's this kid's fear. And next, here's this kid. Here's this kid's story, and here's this kid's fear. You know, and I'm like, okay, I get it. They did that for everybody, and then, like I said, then Mike disappeared, because he was the first one, and then he disappears for like 40 minutes, and then he comes back, and finally Mike's, part of the Losers Club. In the book, let me ask you, do they just like, I don't remember the fat kid's name, but let's say New Kid on the Block, which Ben, which I thought was hysterical. See, I like that. I like, again, the liberties you can take when you're setting this in the 80s. The little play with Beth and Ben, when they would throw the New Kid songs, the titles out, it was funny to me. I like that, right?
Yeah.
But in the book, do they just like automatically accept them the way they did in the movie? Like I could see Ben. Well, I could see both actually, because both of them are getting beat up and picked on. But what I didn't get is in the movie, these kids were kind of trying to stay away from them bullies, and then all of a sudden they see somebody else getting bullied, so now let's go and protect. I don't know how that plays out in the book. I thought that felt rushed. I was like, it doesn't make sense.
It plays out more or less the same way, but with the book being the book and having more room to really explain what's going on and everything like that, you're right. It was kind of rushed in the movie. It felt kind of forced in the movie, but it does happen pretty much the same way. They accidentally stumble upon Mike getting harassed by Henry Bauer and his crew, and initially it's not just about saving Mike. It's about they're tired of Henry Bauer and his shit.
Right, okay.
So it doesn't become like a stand your ground moment, everything like that. And they're just like, we're not just here to protect this Mike. We're here because fuck you. Like, so they get into the rock battle and chase him off and everything like that. And then they're just like, from there, they're just kind of... I feel like the part of the reason why you say it was rushed and everything and why it's partially true is because, again, nothing is done to explore why Mike is essential to this group.
Exactly, yeah.
So it just kind of feels like they're just taking in like this wounded animal, whatever like that, and caring for it, because it almost feels like tokenism, which is a big problem for me, because it feels like it's like this group of white kids who pull in the black kid because he's the black kid that was getting picked on, and it's like a charity kind of thing. Whereas in the book, there's real legitimate, like, he brings something to the table.
So what does he bring to the table in the book?
Everything that Ben did in terms of discovering the history of the town of Derry, figuring out what it was, how it plays into the history of the town of Derry and everything like that, that was all Mike.
Huh.
Mike was the one who figured out what Pennywise was. Mike was the one who figured out, like, was putting all the clues together and everything like that. So all that stuff that Ben did, that was all Mike. So they took away what was essential to the black character and gave it to another one of the white kids. That was problematic for me.
Yeah, so then, that's exactly what, when I saw the explanation videos and shit, I was like, that's got to be what he was talking about. And I agree with that. I do agree with that. Why take that away from a character who is essential in chapter 2? He should know all this stuff. Oh, we're going to get this random explanation while everybody left except for Mike. So Mike took up the mantle that Ben left and did his research and his... Because if that's the case, that's kind of whack. You got to start as a kid. The fact that this kid did all of that research and did... He's homeschooled, so he has time, you know? Yeah, that's disappointing to find out that they switched that around. And I mean, like... I'm not going to get PC and shit, but my biggest beef was in the trailers, you see Mike with them constantly. But when you get to the movie, Mike is in 20 minutes total, if that. He has a good scene. He has some good scenes, especially when he does when he has to take out of the bully, which I thought was cool. But like, yeah, there's a bunch of things that, like I said, I liked about the movie. Pennywise, I did like Pennywise. I did like Alexander Skarsgård. Is it Alexander? Anyhow, the Skarsgård kid. I liked him. He had moments where Tim Curry was sinister as shit, in my opinion. Sinister as Pennywise. It scared me. This movie relied a little bit more on CG effects. Pennywise, his eyes, the way they would like kind of go fisheye, it was creepy. The drooling was weird but creepy, and I get it. I totally bought into that. His deliveries when he's talking to Georgie in the beginning, and I do want to touch upon this, the Georgie situation. That opening sequence is, and I guess this is what kind of like, it set a tone for me that the rest of the movie didn't follow. When Georgie meets Pennywise in the sewer drain, it is downright terrifying because that clown is playing to everything a child likes. First off, it's a clown. He's in a sewer. You're talking to a 5-year-old kid, and he's telling this kid, no, the storm blew the circus head into the sewers. And I don't know if it's through hypnosis, which I'm sure it is, because you see Pennywise's eyes, they start glowing, and he's like, you can smell the circus, you can smell this, you can smell that, you can smell the popcorn, that's your favorite. And it's scary. It's scary. And then what really got me, and this is where I was like, oh, this movie is something different, is the fact that then you have, and yeah, this is spoilers, but if you know the source material, I mean, come on, guys. Then you have them actually showing Pennywise bite off Georgie's arm. I mean, this is graphic. Like, it's not scary. I mean, it's scary. When you really think about it, it's a scary situation. But, like, as far as horror movie jump scares, where you want to be like, it's not. It's, the CG just kind of happens. The teeth open up and from Pennywise, and it just clamps down on Georgie's arm while he's trying to get his boat back. And then the camera cuts away from that, and Georgie pulls out, and he's missing his arm, and he's screaming. And it's a downright frightening sequence, considering what you're watching. A 5-year-old boy who just got his arm bit off and is bleeding in the street. Like, that was visually fucked up. Like, I don't like seeing kids get killed off in movies and nothing like that, man. And this was one of those scenes, and he was crawling and he was crying. He took it like a champ, though, because he was whimpering. I don't know if that was shock hitting him right away, but you're talking about a 5-year-old kid with no arm. He was whimpering, and then you see the long arm of Pennywise come out of the sewer grate and pull Georgie in, and that that was frightening. Again, not a jump scare, but frightening. Just, you know, as a fucking human, you feel for the kid. And I thought from that point on, oh, this movie is going to be lit. And unfortunately, I'll be honest with you, there was one jump scare in the whole movie for me. And that was the the sequence we all see in the trailers where the pictures are going faster and faster, and Pennywise is the woman, and then he jumps out of the fucking screen. That caught me off guard. I was like, oh shit, okay. That was it. I thought the movie was going to be a lot darker, sinister, twisted, and it wasn't. It really wasn't. If anything, I mean, like I said, I liked it. It's funny. When it's horrifying, there's some levity to it. For instance, and correct me if you didn't feel this way, Chris, you'll float too. When Bill sees Georgie in the basement, and this is another part, I really did like this part a lot, actually, a lot. Because I liked the way Georgie kind of turned into a zombie. And then Pennywise is using him as a fucking puppet. Like, I love that. I thought that was great. And then he just like fucking slams him into the water. And then he, you know, you see that part in the trailer where he's running towards the screen and he's screaming and his head is shaking. That's a frightening fucking moment. But then it ends with Bill just getting out of the way while Pennywise bites and misses and clamps onto the fucking stairs. And then he looks like looking at the camera, he goes, ow. Everybody cracked up. I cracked up. I thought it was hysterical. But in something that's supposed to be frightening, what we got in the beginning with Georgie's death was frightening. That right there is throughout this movie. It's like, it's a clown. But like you said, where's the animosity? I don't think Pennywise would have went, ow. You know, he's trying to kill this kid. He hates this kid. Why would he goof off? That to me was, that was like, even though I laughed and I did enjoy that sequence and I kept, you know, elbowing my daughter and doing that just so, because like I said, I knew she was scared. But trying to bring her, but like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, it's fun. It's funny. It was just one of those things that I was like, really? Because this thing is, it's a fucking monster. I'm sorry. The ow is unnecessary because now you're playing to us, the audience, and you shouldn't even know we're here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, things like that. I don't know. Well, and what did you think of Georgie's death scene? Did they handle that right?
I think they did a very good job. I did want to touch on, because you mentioned the whole thing. This is one of the things that I just recently found out that actually impressed me about this movie, because you touch on the whole thing with like the eyes drifting. Yeah. And as it turns out, that's practical.
What?
Bill Skarsgård has a lazy eye. He can actually do that.
Damn.
So all that stuff with the eyes drifting to the side and everything like that, when he was doing that. Like, yeah, I didn't really like the way they used CGI to kind of make his eyes shinier and brighter and all that stuff. But when it comes to the thing about the
deadlights,
eye drifting, when the eyes started drifting, we'll get to the deadlights in a second, because that was another thing that pissed me off. But when it comes to the thing about the eyes drifting, that was something that Bill Skarsgård was actually doing practically. He was making his eyes go sideways. So knowing that, I'm a little bit more impressed with him portraying the character in that sense, which is why I said it was so much of a missed opportunity not giving him more room to really play that character. And there were certain things, and that's what I was hoping for too in this movie, is that, like you said, a lot of it did kind of rely on jump scares. And I really wanted it to focus more on the existential horror of like what was going on and the cosmic horror of it. I was really hoping they would play more towards the atmosphere of dread. Like, you take someone like James Wan, who did the original Saw, and then you have like movies like The Conjuring and what's the other ones he was doing? Insidious and everything like that. And what I liked about James Wan with Insidious is that it's not just that it's scary. He builds this atmosphere of dread. You feel the way the characters would feel in that situation, like what's going on, what's happening in my house and everything like that. You get drawn into the movie and you feel that tension. And that's what I was hoping they would try and pawn off in this movie, is that you would feel the tension of what it's like to have this overwhelming force that's kind of like just beneath the surface of the town and that's driving everything that's happening. And you don't know really what it is, but you get this sense of dread that like something isn't right. Mm-hmm. And there are parts where it seems like they kind of got that in portraying Pennywise as like this character who's not quite right. Like, for instance, the scene where he has Beverly, which I'm going to get to in a second with my problems when he takes Beverly. But that scene where the thing pops open and he's dancing, but his head is staying perfectly stationary.
I like that a lot, I got to be honest.
It does. It gives like this otherworldliness to the character. Like it's something that's not quite right. Like the head should not be totally still while the rest of the body is jangling around like that. So those were certain things that I like, but the CGI felt out of place in a lot of the places.
Well, I heard that a lot too. Wow. Okay.
Like you could tell where certain things were CGI, and I've read a lot of reviews who are like, "Oh, the CGI was blended right." Like it really wasn't. Like the scene where Stanley Uris runs into the flute playing lady from the picture that looks all weird and creepy and everything like that.
Yeah.
When he turns around and sees her in the room, that looks fake.
It did. It did. But one can make the argument that it's supposed to look fake because it's a painting.
Yeah, I can see that, but like it just looked like it was CGI.
Okay.
It had that CGI fakeness to it.
It wasn't like the Twisted Man from The Conjuring. That was scary.
Exactly. So, that was my main problem with this movie.
The leper too. The leper was kind of funky.
The leper was weird.
Yeah, and I think it was a prop, and then they added effects to it.
Yeah. So I think that was the main thing when I walked out of the theater going, I didn't like this movie. I think that was the main thing, is because I realized the potential for all the things they could have gotten right that they just fell short of. And I also, like, for instance, there are certain things where it's like I felt like the whole 80s thing could have taken liberties in the sense of like, all right, for instance, in the original book and in the original movie, Richie was scared of werewolves. It wasn't clowns when he was like, oh, I'm scared of clowns. It was scared of werewolves. He was scared of the werewolf because of this movie he saw called I Was a Teenage Werewolf.
Okay.
And I was thinking it would have been great. It would have been fantastic because this was the 80s, 88. What movie had just come out recently?
American Werewolf in London and The Howling.
Exactly. They could have played with those as his fear of werewolf. And it would have been an amazing scene to see Pennywise kind of like turning into that American Werewolf in London kind of werewolf. We see like the hands start to stretch out and the face popping out like that, like from the clown form into the werewolf. I thought that would have been a great way to play with a more modern setting to the original 1950s horror movies. Because like stuff like Dracula and vampires never really goes wet. The leper could have been more of like a George Romero zombie kind of thing.
Yes.
So they could have played with those ideas. But then that's just a personal thing of mine. So I can't really hold to the faults of the movie because they're not even able to get the rights for those movies. That's fine. I just thought that would have been a cool thing to do.
I mean, they did have the mummy at the end.
Yeah. But it's just, I don't know, there's so many things there's so much potential that this movie could have had that it didn't live up to, that I just felt like it wound up feeling flat and feeling bland. And like I said, because for most of the movie, Pennywise is almost a non-factor. It's like I thought Pennywise was supposed to kill you using your greatest fears, not by boring you to death.
You really thought he was boring?
With the exception of those two scenes, like, yeah, I really thought. I was like, why is this even here? Like, he's not doing anything.
I think he was scaring the kids. I like, for me personally, like, for instance, the hypochondriac. What was his name again?
Eddie.
When the leper chases him, and then we get the scene from the trailer, the balloons, and then he's like, hiya, or whatever he says. I think he was scared. Like, again, because if I'm not mistaken, in the book, he says the fear is like the salt that seasons the meat. So I think what he was doing was he was salting it. He was, you got to let certain things simmer 24 hours. You know what I'm saying? Let it sit overnight in the seasoning. You get it the next day. You throw it on the grill. It's woo-hoo. It's delicious. So in that regard, I do, again, agree with those two particular scenes you mentioned being the most characteristic of Pennywise, like showing the most character from the clown. But My problem personally was he wasn't on screen enough. He had as much time as Mike did. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to see more Pennywise. You know, I wanted to see him on screen more. When we did see him, again, he was horrifying yet goofy. For instance, when Mike sees him when he's getting beat up by the bullies right before the rock fight.
And he waves the arm. That was cool.
That was cool. It was funny. But I'm like, he's like, I don't know, man. I wanted more. Again, I think, and I only seen the It miniseries once, maybe twice. But I remember Tim Curry really being in the forefront of that movie, and Tim Curry really scaring the shit out of me. That was 1990. I was 11, I think 12. I don't remember, but I was scared. You know, like, fuck, this shit is scary. And as good as Bill Skarsgård was as Pennywise, I just, like you said, they didn't use him. I don't think it was boring when they did use him, but the potential wasn't utilized, and I was mad at that. Let me ask you a question, because I know you want to get to it, and I want to talk about this. The Deadlights in the miniseries, Pennywise, I don't know if he was hypnotized. I don't remember. I don't know if he was hypnotizing the kids or whatever, but they really did that glow effect with his eyes a lot. And then, of course, in the chapter 2, the abdomen of the insect creature thing had the Deadlights. Why didn't you like the Deadlights? Is it because they only used it once, or you just didn't like what they did with it, or they didn't use it enough?
I didn't like it because they didn't explain what the Deadlights are.
That's wonderful. I 100% agree with you.
If you walked into this movie
without knowing the source material,
without knowing anything about the source material, without ever having seen the original miniseries where they kind of touch on the Deadlights and everything like that, like that scene where his face opens up and the Deadlights come out to Beverly and she goes catatonic and everything like that. If you're completely new to this, you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Like, why are her eyes gray? Why is she floating in the sky? What was that in his face? What the fuck?
Is that in the book, by the way? Is that scene in the book?
Yeah. No, it's not in the book.
Because I don't remember that from the miniseries either. I didn't remember.
And that goes back to another problem that I have with this movie and the way they marginalized him. I hated the way they sidelined Mike Hanlon, took away that aspect of his character. Like, he was the one that kind of like figured everything out and knew the history of the town and figured out what Pennywise was. And I hated the fact that they turned Beverly into the damsel in distress at the end, because that's not what happened. All of them made a conscious decision to go to the sewers. It wasn't to go to save Beverly. It was they all made a conscious decision to go to the sewers and put an end to Pennywise once and for all. All of them went together.
Now, you see right there, and this is, I think, when I came out of this movie, this was my biggest takeaway from it. What you just said right there. I didn't read the book, right? And like I said, I don't remember much from the miniseries other than Tim Curry scaring the shit out of me, and Chapter 2, Homeboy's head in the fucking fridge, and of course the giant insect monster thing at the end. Oh, and I was waiting for the battery acid thing. I was like, oh, come on, you got the pump, use it! But they didn't use it. I was mad, but I was okay with it. But that was the biggest takeaway for me. At the end of the day, when I walked out of it, I said to myself, I liked it. I did like it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I liked it. But it felt watered down almost. It felt like it was catering to a younger generation who have no business seeing this movie because they're not there yet. You know what I'm saying? It felt like a children's horror movie. That's how I walked out. Like, it wasn't scary. It's frightening. Like I said, I only jumped once, and because that thing popped out of the fucking screen, and his face was all fucked up. And if I was watching this shit in 3D, yeah, I'd have pissed myself. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's not soda. But at the end of the day, I was like, when we have movies like The Conjuring, this should have been like The Conjuring scares the shit out of. That's a scary fucking movie.
Yeah.
This movie was more or less. My wife just walked in the room, scared the shit out of me right now. She's the conjure. She just conjured my fears. Nice, nice shirt though. I love it. This movie felt like it caters to kids who cannot see this movie yet, unless they're with an adult. You know what I'm saying? That's how I felt. I just felt like it was and I'm not trying to bash this movie. I don't want it. This is not meant to bash it, but it felt like a Dr. Seuss version of a Stephen King novel.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's not knocking it, because Dr. Seuss is creepy if you really think about it. But this movie could have easily been PG-13. The R rating was because of my man Finn and his potty mouth, which had me crying the whole movie. That kid was
stole the show.
Stole the show
point blank.
Yeah, because the horror and the gore is really not there. There's no legit gore outside of Georgie's arm. Yeah. So I was like, there. It was R. It was rated R because of the language. It really was. It really was. You could take your like I said, I took my 13-year-old to see it. And this is the first horror movie she ever seen in the theaters. We've watched Night of the Living Dead. We've watched the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead, and we've watched Dawn of the Dead, the original one. So she's seen her zombie shit. I'm trying to get her to see Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm sure what a real horror movie is. Like I said, I think she was scared. But at the end of the day, this movie wasn't a scary movie. It didn't do what The Conjuring did for me. That, to me, in this day and age, that's the tempo. That's where you gotta hit. You gotta reach The Conjuring. And it didn't get there. I liked it. I did. But I didn't love it like, someone who's taking a breather today, Matt.
Yeah. And that's like I said, I think in the hands of someone like a James Wan who understands about building atmosphere in movies, I think this movie would have been fucking phenomenal. Because I think he would have set that tone, that creepy undertone to the town and everything like that.
So let me ask you a question. Now that we've seen the movie, do you think Cary Fukunaga would have done something like that? Do you think it would have been a better movie with him, or what? Well, you think?
I think based on his work on True Detective, the first season of True Detective, I think he would have caught that tone too. There were a couple of things that I read about what he wanted to do, which if they were true, I was kind of opposed to. Like, for instance, he wanted to change most of the kids' names, which would have been, why? Why would you need to do that? That makes no sense.
That makes no sense.
There's no need to do that.
Yeah.
I read that he wanted to keep in that scene.
Really?
Yeah.
You go ahead. You can say what the scene is. We spoke about this, the consensual sex scene.
And honestly, there's one thing I will say, because they almost had a little bit of a slight nod to it in this movie, and I'll explain that in a second. So in the book, this wasn't in the original miniseries either, because obviously they weren't going to put this on TV.
Yeah.
In the book, after the initial battle with it in the sewers, the kids kind of start to forget their bond, because Pennywise was what kind of pulled them together. He was the connecting and driving force for why they were all kind of like hanging out and why they became the Losers Club and everything like that, and what drew them together. So they kind of start to forget all that stuff after they defeat Pennywise, and they wind up getting lost in the sewer.
Wait.
You can't find them. Yeah.
So this is at the end of chapter 1 we're talking?
Yeah. This is when they were still kids.
Okay.
So they kind of get lost in the sewer. The way they decide to reconnect and rekindle that bond and like I said, reconnect with each other and get that unity back so they can get their memories back and escape the sewer is, for lack of better phrasing, they all run a train on Beverly.
Yeah, for lack of better. There's 1,000 different ways you could have went there.
They all have sex with Beverly. I mean, it's 5 dudes having sex with this one girl that's running a train.
It is running a train. It's trizzy.
So they all had sex with Beverly, and that's how they reconnect. They do have almost a bit of a slight nod to that in this movie, because this is, again, going to be disturbing for some people who don't know the source material and haven't had years to make their peace with what they've read. So they all do it, like they all have sex with her, but it's with Ben that Beverly actually achieves her own orgasm.
Oh boy, here we go.
So that scene where they pull her down, where she's floating and everything like that, and then Ben kisses her and it snaps her back is almost kind of like a nod to that connection that her and Ben had in the sex scene.
Okay. Well, there you have it, G-Show Land. That's about as X-rated as we're getting on this show.
Yeah, it is when you're first like when I saw the miniseries as a kid, and it freaked me out as a kid because you're a kid and you're watching this movie about an evil entity that specifically targets children.
Did you read the book before you saw that miniseries?
No.
Okay.
So because I was in love with it, like as time went on, and I was in love with the miniseries, I loved what Tim Curry did, and I started, as I was getting older, I was reading more, and I was in love with Stephen King. I was like, you know what? I love that miniseries. Let me check out the book. And I'm reading the book, and this is after I was old enough to understand concepts like sex and sexuality and all that stuff and everything like that. It's not like I was like some 8-year-old who had no idea what sex was.
Right.
And I'm reading this, and I'm reading it, and I'm reading it, and I get to this scene, and they start describing how they're all like getting on her, and I'm like, what in the absolute fuck do you have me reading right now? Stephen fucking King. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Could not think of a better way to have these children reconnect their friendship other than to have preteen sex with each other?
Yeah.
So it was very shocking and disturbing, and it kind of like, it fucked with my head for a bit having read that at a young age when I was still kind of forming my own identity sexually and everything like that. It was in the formative years, it kind of screws with you a little bit.
Yeah.
But that all aside, it's good that they left that scene out. It should not have been in the movie.
Right. Absolutely.
There's no way anyone wants to watch a scene with a bunch of underage children having sex with each other in a sewer.
I don't even want to talk about this no more. I'm a little comfortable. Yeah.
Moving on from that. The main thing I didn't like was how they don't get into the mythology. Right. Because, you can explore it in the future in the second half, but a big part of the first half of when they were kids, a big part of the driving force is these kids figuring out the identity of Pennywise, what he is. There's actually a scene that's in the book where they all do a
like
a ritual. They build like a little fort and everything, and then they go in there and they get like these and it's like a Native American ritual. I forget what it's called or whatever like that, but they burn stuff in the fort, these special leaves or whatever like that, and they basically have a peyote trip.
Okay.
And they actually see in prehistoric times, in like the days of the dinosaurs and everything, when the earth is still forming, they see it come to Earth and plant itself in the location that will later become Derry in the future and everything like that. And they get a sense of what it is. And it's like this cosmic entity. And that goes back to why it pissed me off they didn't explain what the Deadlights is, because the Deadlights is actually its true form. It doesn't actually have a physical form. Everything you see on Earth is like the closest approximation to what it. When you have the scene at the end where it turns into the giant spider,
yes,
that's just the closest approximation for a real world like form to what it would be. But it's actually just the Deadlights. It's just this cosmic entity. So I was kind of annoyed that they didn't at least tread a little bit into the backstory and how these kids discover what it was, because that's an essential part of what brings them together is them battling it, figuring out what it is, figuring out how it operates, figuring out what drives it, and then taking that away from him and challenging him and figuring out how to defeat him.
Yeah. Well, that about wraps that up. Dude, I really wish we were here with Matt to have that debate. Seriously, because honestly, the cards are on the table now. Final score before we go. What do you give it? I don't care if it's out of 10, 5, whatever you want to do. What's your final score?
All right, so for a final score, I'd probably give it like maybe like a 4 or 5 out of 10. Honestly, because there are certain things that it got right, and but it felt a lot flatter than I was hoping for. Maybe I just went into the wrong. I felt like the trailers did a better job building the atmosphere than the actual movie did, and it led me to this expectation that this was actually going to be a proper adaptation of the book, and that was really going to draw from the source material. And at the end of the day, they just really didn't drive for it the way I felt they should have. So yeah, 4 or 5, because there are, like I said, it's because of the potential the movie had that they didn't fulfill on, is why I'm giving it a mediocre rating.
Gotcha.
Because there were things that, like, for instance, at the beginning of Georgie, one of the things I don't think people realized was a subtle little thing. When he goes into the cellar and he sees those 2 glowing things that look in the eyes and he turns the lights on, it's the crystals and everything like that.
Yep.
You make the connection, that really was it. And his fear of the cellar is what drew it to him, which is why he targeted George specifically in the story. He could have went for anyone. But it was fear that drew it to him. Another thing I didn't like is they made it seem like Pennywise won't attack somebody if they don't fear him. Fear is just something, like he said, it just seasons the food. But he'll still kill you if you're not afraid of him.
Right.
So that whole scene where, like, he has Beverly and she goes, I'm not afraid of you. And he goes, oh, you're right, so I'm not going to eat you. In reality, Pennywise has been like, okay, you won't taste as good, but I'll still fucking eat you. Like, but yeah, so it's just like, I don't know. It didn't deliver on the promise that I was made by the trailers.
Real quick, I want to ask you, before I give my review, my score, that sequence with all the kids floating, that's in the book?
No.
Because I didn't like that at all.
I don't know where the fuck they got that from. It made no sense.
It made no sense. I'm like, what? Then Georgie's up there.
Yeah. Like, why wouldn't Pennywise Pennywise actually does eat the children. He consumes them. Why are there remains floating around? Like, that made no sense. There was no reason for that. It was a dumb conceit.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It completely took me out. That was another thing I didn't like. I don't want to keep stretching out, but that was another thing I like. The final confrontation when they're all kind of taken. That's not how it happens. And they take, they didn't do the ritual of Chud, which is essential because it's actually when it starts withdrawing from them in the battle, it's not a physical thing. He withdraws from them back to his dimension, and Bill pursues him. And he gets caught in the ritual of Chud with the character, and he winds up kind of defeating him, which is why they're able to injure Pennywise in the physical world, and why he falls back and everything like that. And they didn't touch on that because that's going to become a major part of them defeating him at the end as adults. So they did a poor job just establishing the mythology. Or really, they didn't establish the mythology at all. And that annoyed me.
Well, let's see what they could do with part 2, or chapter 2, because that's what it should be called, It Chapter 2. Yeah, I didn't understand why all those kids were floating. I thought that was stupid. Especially they're floating right there. Like, anybody could walk and look down into this fucking sewer grate and see floating children. That was dumb. I was dumb. But anyway, yeah, I'm not gonna go as low as you will, but like I said, I didn't love this movie either. I didn't hate it, so I'm more at a 7 out of 10 because I did come out of this movie, not impressed, but I was entertained. You know what I'm saying? I was entertained. Not the way I wanted it to. Not the way I wanted it to be. I wanted to be scared. I thought, this is a horror movie. I wanted to fucking jump out of my chair. Like, oh, Jesus Christ! I'm having a heart attack. I'm gonna die. But for the most part, my strawberry lemonade was gone in like the middle of the second act, and I was just sitting there eating Raisinets without a drink for the rest of the movie. And yeah, so 7 out of 10. I can't go any higher than that. It has its flaws. One of the major things that bothered me was it really wasn't scary. It was. You can't show Nightmare on Elm Street to a 13-year-old and expect them to just like, yeah, that's nothing. No, Nightmare on Elm Street is fucking scary. I thought was going to be the new Nightmare on Elm Street. I thought it was going to scare the fuck out of people. and it didn't. It didn't for me. So that's where I stand.
See, I will concede that I'm coming at this with a harsher outlook because I'm a huge fan of the book. So I'm scrutinizing it under a different microscope.
Yeah.
But you're right. It didn't feel scary. Like, honestly, aside from all the other complaints that I have from it, because I could see where people are drawing certain things from it. Like they love the kids and everything like that. I really just don't see what everyone is talking about. Like it's this new classic horror. Like it was legitimately terrifying.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Getting this from.
Yeah. What?
At no point during this movie did anything happen where I was like, "Yo, if I was in that situation, I'd be terrified."
I don't know. Maybe a couple of things. I was like, "Oh boy, oh no." Like seeing your fucking picture on that.
A lot of that stuff. And maybe it's just because like I was a weird 13-year-old. I was super into the supernatural stuff and everything like that. It's like, but like a lot of that stuff, like Pennywise popped up in my face.
That's because you from New York. You got to deal with rats the size of fucking 5-year-olds.
Why are you in the sewer? Oh, a storm blew me away. Into the sewer? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Don't you want your boat back? Nah, I'll go make another boat, motherfucker. Get out of my face.
That's not even mine. Fuck you.
Bill's gonna kill you. Bill can try to fuck you.
Yeah, Bill. I beat Bill's ass every day. Motherfucker owe me money. Get out of here. Now I feel you on that, man. Oh, God. Well, there you have it. There you have it. We talk a little bit of Star Wars. We go into a rant about It, the movie. Unfortunately, like I said, Matt loves this movie. I want to throw this out there. Matt loves this movie, and I really wish he wasn't feeling under the weather today so he can defend his... I want to know what he loved about this movie. Because like I said, I like the movie, but Matt is on another level from me. I'm like, dude... Y'all all see when we get to the top 5 or 10 movies of the year at the end of this year, which is in a couple of months, we're going to have a fucking war of the words right here. We're going to have a battle royale. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But Chris, thank you for joining us today, man. Thank you for joining me, I should say, today.
No problem. One last thing I wanna say, not to drag this out.
If I could do
but
it.
Is it just me, or does the dude chosen Jacob to play Mike look like he would be perfect, like when he grows up to play Muhammad Ali in a movie?
God damn, we leaving that. And on that note, and on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for geeking out with us. I am G1. This is the Geek Out. We're out of here.
Chosen Jacob, Muhammad Ali 2020.